Hi, my name is Savannah Smith, and this is Craig Houston, pastor of Westside Baptist Church. I'll be interviewing him for part one of my final semester project for contemporary world issues. We will be discussing the impact that the global economic crisis has had on his life. Pastor, I have 8 questions for you, so let's get started. My first question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being little to no impact and 10 being life-changing impact, how would you rate the general impact that the recent economic recession has had on your life?
On my life personally?
Yes. Overall.
Well, the economic impact has definitely affected our family personally and myself personally, and that's because it's impacted all the people in which we minister to, and it has included financial impact on a personal basis, and it has thankfully not impacted us with any losses of house or property or things of that nature, but it's definitely had a personal toll in the sense that resources have not been as abundant, though we have weathered through the difficulty.
Alright, so would you say that was probably, numerically, would you say that was about like a 6, or?
I would say maybe for our family a 7. Is the worst a 1?
The worst is a 10.
Oh, let's say a 4.
Okay. Alright, my next question is, how was your family impacted by the economic recession?
Our family's been impacted because, for one, our home's value dropped about $100,000, and thankfully we have, been able to maintain the mortgages and things of that nature. But there was definitely a loss in overall equity, and that takes away your ability to have leverage for other things if you want to make investments and things of that nature. But it has impacted us, one, medically. Our insurance in the last 2 years ago went from being $1,200 a month to a premium of $2,770 a month, which we were no longer able to afford, and that was part of the recession and partly due to changes in medical laws in preparation for Obamacare. So that was definitely something that has impacted us in a very personal way. So we went without insurance, and that has caused greater income expenditures on medical costs and things of that nature. So that was definitely a big hit. Besides our mortgage and medical, we took a substantial reduction in salary and haven't had normal cost of living increases and things because our whole congregation is affected. It's something that emotionally has been an impact, not because we personally have suffered great losses, but it's been hard to minister to families who've lost their homes, who've had losses of jobs, things of that nature directly related to that. That breaks our heart. We've had people for seasons living with us as a family because partly due to economic crises, loss of jobs, things of that nature, for a better part of a year. And so there's been many different ways that it's impacted us personally.
I think you just answered some of my questions, but we'll move on to the next one. Very good answer, really. Thank you. Were there any major hobbies or material items that you had to give up for economic purposes?
Well, I'm pretty boring, so I haven't had to give up any hobbies. Was the other one major purchase?
Major hobbies or material items.
Yeah, I would say my biggest. This is going to sound very lame, but my biggest things like I haven't upgraded my computers. But those are things that mine are getting along just fine. But those are things that probably, if the economy was more robust, that I would have by this point. So.
Okay. And my 4th question is, How was your church impacted by the recession, specifically the congregation and staff members?
Well, it's been very difficult because I like to lead our congregation, to treat our staff who work very hard, who work long hours, well, and I haven't been able to lead the church in giving them raises, or myself, which I don't adjust my own income, but I do have an influence on our staff members, and it's been a burden that I haven't been able to treat them as well as I believe they deserve to be treated, in the sense of being compensated in a way that really would represent the work that they do and the hours that they spend. So that's been hard, and also some of the benefits that we might have been able to do, whether it's travel to a conference or things of that nature. A lot of that has been greatly reduced, and so some of the things that you would have for leadership training and events like that have been non-existent because of financial constraints. So everything has been tight, and for the congregation, we have operated debt-free until 3 years ago we purchased property next to us, and we have a 5-year note to pay off on that, and that happened right at the same time kind of this economic crisis hit, and we're thankful we've made every payment, and we plan to do so, and to pay things off, but it's not as there's not so much room in the budget for those things. And I was thinking about back in with material things in my family, I for good reason, but I made a choice to sell a vehicle that I had a loan on so that I could pay it off, and I paid it off and bought a vehicle for cash. So now I own all of my vehicles for cash. But those are some of the things that are, I think, wise decisions, but at the same time, when you're making those decisions on the basis of you don't have as much confidence in your financial solvency, then it creates a need to make decisions that, like, I liked my truck, but I like having the comfort of not having the bill or the obligation, mm-hmm. and I try to be a good steward with funds. So.
And my fifth question is, how did you and the other staff members help the members of your congregation during the recession?
Well, in personal ways, I think that we have worked with different ones, counseling them, helping set up family budgets, helping them to make decisions as far as just giving counsel with regards to how to go about dealing with a crunch between, do we keep our house or do we do something different, helping some families with giving financial need help, assistance, benevolence, food cards and things like that. That's been very much a part of all of our ministry, but particularly the last 3 years. That's been something that has been very much a need.
Has it been, this is one of my questions, but has it been difficult to help them because of your own financial constraints?
No.
No?
I mean, that's something that we put as a priority, and there are times when we make a distinction. There are people that come with needs all the time, and we want to help people in our community at large, and sometimes you get the same people repeating, and they're just looking for a handout, mm-hmm. and we kind of have a vetting process that we do when people are coming for benevolent needs. But when it comes to the people of our church, if they're in a place where they have need, we do everything we can to help meet that need as much as is possible. Sometimes people don't communicate what their real need is, but there have been times where people have needed fuel to get to work, people have needed to borrow cars, people have needed various and sundry things to help with their families, and that's what our church family is for. We're here to help one another.
And my sixth question is, did members of your congregation reach out to help others in the congregation or community during the recession?
Absolutely.
And do you know in what ways they did?
I know that people have opened their homes for temporary housing needs. I know that people have brought many meals to others. I know that people have been there to counsel and encourage. Many times we have had members that have helped other members find jobs, hear about leads, find cheap housing. There's been various and sundry ways that are really a lot of ways that I even probably don't know where people have helped, because one of the things we teach is that when you do something to help others, you don't necessarily beat the drum and let everybody know what you're doing. There are some things we do corporately that we know about, and that's right and good to take care of our church family. But there are other things that people just do on an individual basis that I know have been huge, because sometimes those people say, this family has been a huge blessing, or I can't believe the love that I was shown. That's the nature. There's probably places that we missed, too. There's probably things that we failed in, but I'm grateful for those stories and testimonies of people helping others. So, well, the Bible says that even giving a cold glass of water in the name of Jesus, he says, when you did that, you did it unto me, and when you fed the hungry or clothed the naked. And so that's ministering the love of Christ to people, and it's making the gospel, the message of Jesus, tangible. It's putting it from words into actions, and both words and actions are necessary. So absolutely, there's been opportunities to spread the gospel, and we've had families that have visited who are in need and have heard the gospel, and what they do with that is not in our hands, but that they hear the message of the love of Jesus is our responsibility. So there's definitely times. There was a time this summer when we had an outdoor barbecue, and there was a family that was coming because they were invited and they were told, we'll feed you, and they were hungry and they had been homeless, and we were glad they were there, and they were receptive to the message. They didn't act as if they were being put off to have to come and just come for the meal. They were coming and participating. So
what economic problems have you seen increase in your community since the beginning of the recession?
When you say community, do you mean our church community or our community at large?
Our community at large.
Well, first of all, I would say as a community, Kitsap County fared very well, and I would say that the national and even international economic crises didn't hit our county until at least 2 years after it hit other places like San Diego or Las Vegas or Phoenix. And it didn't hit even then as hard or for as long. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them, I believe, is because our county has a very high percentage of federal employees. So, with over 10,000 that work at Bangor Shipyard, with the military fleet here in Bremerton and in Bangor, the general populace, including the stores and the apartments and the houses for rent or for sale, that was not as affected for a longer period of time because they have a pretty steady income stream that also has created in our county a higher average cost, a higher average income level. The median income in our county is much higher than it is a lot of places. And so because of that, I think it warded off the economic crises for at least 2 years. In fact, in our church, we didn't feel it for the first 2 years where there was national headlines and things. It wasn't until the finish of the second year that we began to feel it, really in 2010. And so it's something that because of that, I think it helped our community at large stay stronger. And I still to this day don't believe that we have experienced the kind of devastation that I've seen. I visited Las Vegas and was preaching there at a church, and all over, community after community, just empty houses with for sale signs all over the place. And it hasn't been until really the last year or two where more people have lost their homes in this area and things of that nature, but it hasn't been to the level that it has other places. And that wasn't necessarily because of loss of jobs, it was because they became upside down in their houses. They had houses that were worth far less than what they paid for them, and it just takes a few hiccups financially, and could be one spouse loses a job or something of that nature and they're not able to pay. So people bought it at the height of what their capabilities were. But by and large, I think compared to many places in our nation, our community, Kitsap County, has done well. And I think it's still doing well. And the recovery is happening here sooner than it is other places. Real estate market's on the rise. Jobs are, at least I'll say from a practical standpoint, I drive around and regularly. In the last week, I've seen multiple, we're hiring signs. I know of a company needing a manager. I know in different places that there are places that need people to work. And so if people are needing work, then I think they can find it if they really are diligent. So.
And my last question for you is, did God use the recession to grow your faith in any ways?
Well, I don't know that I would say the recession specifically, because honestly, the things that have happened during the recession that aren't recession related have been, I think, more what have grown my faith in the last 3 years. So even though the recession was kind of an underlying part of that, it wasn't as important as a daughter who has leukemia, or having a family living with you for 9 months of the year, and those are things we know God has used, and we're thankful and would do them again if that's what God chose. But the underlying financial constraints that affected it, but that wasn't primary for us. So if I was getting a second job, which I considered, if I was doing different things like that, then it would have been probably more of an impact. But as to this point, I haven't had to do that.
Thank you for your time. Your input has been very beneficial to this project.
Thank you, Savannah, for the privilege to be interviewed. I hope it all goes well for you.